So, what happens when a congressional hearing about the Jeffrey Epstein files just completely goes off the rails and turns into an all-out war? Well, we're about to unpack that. This wasn't just some tense meeting. It was a political battlefield full of explosive allegations about cover-ups, lies, and, for the first time, a really direct focus on Donald Trump.
This one quote pretty much sums up the entire vibe of the hearing. Right away, you know this isn't going to be about polite questions and answers. It was raw, it was personal, and it escalated immediately into accusations of criminal cover-ups and, yeah, even lying under oath. You could feel the tension from the very first minute.
You see, the real issue here wasn't just about getting answers. It was about lawmakers openly accusing the Department of Justice of protecting powerful people caught up in Epstein's web. So what should have been a standard oversight hearing just completely devolved into one fiery confrontation after another, with neither side giving an inch.
All right, so let's just start with that hostility. At one point, a lawmaker just dismissed the whole thing as pathetic, a comment that honestly perfectly set the tone for the absolute breakdown of order that was about to happen. The deflection started immediately. A lawmaker asks a really simple, direct question. Hey, how many of Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators have actually been indicted for child sex trafficking? And the response? It wasn't an answer. It was basically a flat-out refusal to even engage. This moment right here is a perfect snapshot of how the whole thing just blew up.
So after all that back and forth, that same lawmaker just went ahead and answered his own question. The number of Epstein's co-conspirators indicted for child sex trafficking? 0. Just a single stark number that became the weapon of choice for the rest of the hearing.
And that leads us right to the core accusation, that the Department of Justice isn't just being slow, it's actively hiding information. The fight wasn't just about what was known, but about what was being deliberately, buried.
So what exactly is the claim? Well, the allegation is that the DOJ is using redactions, those black boxes that cover up text and documents, not to protect victims, but to protect the powerful men who were involved with Epstein.
Lawmakers laid it out like this. They said you go to the DOJ's website to see what's behind a redaction, and what do you find? Just another layer of black ink. This tactic makes it impossible to digitally search for key names, which effectively buries the evidence right there in plain sight. They even claimed some files were pulled from the website altogether.
And to put a number on it, one lawmaker claimed that the name of a key alleged co-conspirator, Les Wexner, showed up over 4,000 times in one FBI document, yet it was initially blacked out. This was held up as Exhibit A of a deliberate cover-up.
Man, this exchange was electric. After being accused of being caught red-handed, the Attorney General fires back, saying the mistake with Wexner's name was fixed in 40 minutes. But the accuser wasn't having it, arguing that no, it was only corrected because they got caught.
Okay, now we get to the most explosive part of the entire hearing. This is where the focus shifts from a general cover-up to some very specific and pretty damning allegations involving former President Donald Trump.
So the allegations were laid out on a timeline. It kicks off in 1994 with this alleged meeting at Mar-a-Lago. Then it jumps to 2002 with Trump's own public comments about Epstein. And it all culminates with a reference to a recent FBI presentation that supposedly flagged what it called salacious statements about Trump found deep inside the Epstein files.
The first huge piece of evidence came from a victim who the government itself said was credible. Her testimony helped convict Ghislaine Maxwell. She described this alleged encounter at Mar-a-Lago, and the implication was crystal clear, that Trump was aware of Epstein's interest in this very young girl. And then there was this. A totally separate witness statement was brought up, this time from a former limo driver who had called the FBI's tip line. He claimed he met a girl who made this absolutely horrific allegation against both men. And this is where the hearing took its darkest turn. The lawmaker revealed the limo driver's claim that this girl was later found dead under very suspicious circumstances. And here's the bombshell accusation, that no one from the Department of Justice ever followed up to interview this witness. Not a single person. Now, as you can imagine, there was a forceful defense. Supporters of Trump in the hearing just dismissed these claims outright, not as credible evidence, but as politically motivated attacks, pure and simple.
So you have two sides in completely different universes. One side is saying there's damning evidence that Trump knew what was going on way back in 1994. The other, a flat-out denial, insisting there is zero evidence that Donald Trump has ever committed a crime.
This quote from one of Trump's former lawyers also got brought into the hearing. Critics presented it as this shocking, flippant dismissal of how serious it is to associate with a known pedophile. Changing the message from, if you see something, say something, to basically just a shrug.
So in the end, Trump's defenders just framed this whole line of questioning as a political hit job. They didn't just push back on the evidence, they attacked the accuser's motive, chalking it all up to a political obsession they called Trump derangement syndrome.
So after all the yelling and the accusations and the denials, what are we actually left with? Honestly, the hearing raised way more questions than it answered, and it just left this huge cloud of uncertainty hanging over the entire case.
We still have these crucial unanswered questions, like who is actually responsible for all these redactions? Is the DOJ ever going to follow up on that limo driver's shocking testimony? And maybe the biggest question of all, why have 0 co-conspirators been charged with trafficking? It all comes down to this fundamental question of accountability.
And that really is the heart of it, isn't it? This hearing, it peeled back a layer, and it revealed this deep, deep distrust and these really explosive allegations. But it leaves all of us wondering, in a story this tangled up with immense wealth, political power, and just devastating secrets, how do we ever find the truth?